Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. We talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm your host, Jeffrey, and subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. We just passed 350 subs. Thank you guys from the bottom of my heart, and I hope I can continue to make great content you guys will enjoy in the future. Now, on the West Coast Conference on Saturday night, college basketball featuring College Game Day, who's going to be in the building at the Kennel. The St. Mary's Gales are going to be traveling on the road to the Gonzaga Bulldogs with the West Coast Conference regular season title on the line. Who do I think is going to win this game? Let's break it down. Now, St. Mary's, they are atop the West Coast Conference standings right now at 25-5 and 14-1 in the WCC, and Randy Bennett has done a fantastic job throughout his tenure as the St. Mary's head coach, but this year might be his best season yet because of the fact not a lot of people thought St. Mary's would be this good this year. Many people thought possibly they would be a tournament team, but they're safely in the NCAA tournament picture right now, and they've overachieved this season, having a great year overall. And while St. Mary's does feature a great record, their resume is a bit lacking. They only have wins over Vanderbilt and San Diego State in the non-conference. They have beaten Gonzaga, and they won at BYU in the West Coast Conference so far this season, but they do have losses to New Mexico, Loyola, Marymount, and Houston. But overall, St. Mary's record is so great that even though their resume is a bit weak, St. Mary's is going to be a lock for the NCAA tournament no matter what, and still they've had a fantastic season because if they weren't playing as well, they definitely would not have the record that they do. And looking at St. Mary's roster this season, a big reason why they're having such a great year is because Aiden Mahaney, their star freshman, is averaging 15.1 points per game and 2.4 rebounds per game. No one thought Aiden Mahaney was going to be this good coming out of high school. He was a really good high school player, but coming into this season for St. Mary's, no one thought he would be the leading scorer, and he's averaging 15 points per game just off the bat in his freshman year, and he's lighting it up. He's a clutch shooter, and he does so many things on offense and defense for the Gales, and that's why St. Mary's is having a great year. And Logan Johnson coming around lately is another big key for St. Mary's. He's an experienced veteran guard for the Gales, and he's averaging 13.8 points per game, 5 rebounds per game, and 3.6 assists per game. He's definitely upped his game lately. He's been playing much better over the last few games for St. Mary's, and Logan Johnson and Aiden Mahaney being the 1-2 punch for St. Mary's is making them such a tough team to beat. Mitchell Saxon's averaging 12.2 points per game and 8.4 rebounds per game. Very good center for the Gales, and overall, he does a great job on the glass, and he gets a lot of rebounds, and he's a pretty solid low-post scorer. Alex Dukas is averaging 12.2 points per game and 3.9 rebounds per game. Another really good guard for St. Mary's, and he complements Logan Johnson and Aiden Mahaney really well. And Kyle Bowen's averaging 5.6 points per game and 7.5 rebounds per game. He's another great defender and rebounder as well. And as a spark plug off the bench for the Gales, St. Mary's also has Augustus Marcelionis to come in and be able to provide good minutes when one of their starting guards is in foul trouble or needs a rest. And this season, St. Mary's is averaging 71.6 points per game on offense, and on defense, they're only allowing 58.9 points per game. That is the reason St. Mary's is having the year that they are, because if they were only scoring 71.6 points per game and they were giving up like 68 points per game on defense, they'd be a 500 team. But their defense has helped them win games all year long, and when you're only giving up 59 points on average on the defensive side of the ball, you're going to win a lot of games, and that's because of Randy Bennett getting his players to play tough defense, and he's done a great job getting his players to buy into his system, and that's why the Gales are having such a great season. Now on the Gonzaga side, they're 24-5 and 13-2 in the West Coast Conference this season, and they are behind St. Mary's by one game. If Gonzaga is able to beat St. Mary's this time around, they'll end up tying for the West Coast Conference regular season title with the Gales instead of losing it to St. Mary's. So this is an important game for Gonzaga and Mark Few if they want to tie for the win in the West Coast Conference. And Mark Few, he has done a great job, just like Randy Bennett at Gonzaga, turning the Bulldogs into a program that is a force in college basketball, and they've been one of the elite teams in college basketball for the last 15 years. And Mark Few overall, if it wasn't for him, the Gonzaga Bulldogs program probably would be nowhere close to where they're at right now. And this year they're playing really well, even though they have taken a bit of a step back from where they have been. And they do have great wins over Alabama, Xavier, Kentucky, and Michigan State in the non-conference. Especially that Alabama wins really aged well. And they also have losses to Texas, St. Mary's, Loyola, Marymount, Purdue, and Baylor. And overall, Gonzaga doesn't have the resume that they have normally had the past few seasons, but overall it's still really solid and one of the better resumes in college basketball. And Drew Timme, his return for the Bulldogs has been so huge, and he's lived up to expectations in the preseason. And he's averaged 21.3 points per game, 7.3 rebounds, and 3.3 assists per game. He's one of the 5 best centers in college basketball. And if it wasn't for Drew Timme's such high level of play, there's no way that Gonzaga would be doing half as good as they are this season. And Julian Strawther has been a great second option for Gonzaga this year. He's really stepped up, and he's averaging 15.5 points per game and 6.5 rebounds per game. He is now looking like an NBA draft prospect for sure. Last year he was solid, but he's come back for Gonzaga. And along with Drew Timme, both players have improved so much for Gonzaga, and Julian Strawther especially is just just looks so much better this year than he did last year. And Rasir Bolton's the best guard for Gonzaga. He's averaging 11.1 points per game and 2.5 assists per game. That's a big reason why Gonzaga is not as good this year, is because their guard play has been down. But Rasir Bolton has stepped it up lately and been playing much better basketball. Anton Watson's averaging 11.1 points per game and 5.7 rebounds per game. He's stepped up his level of play lately, and he's looking like a player that could be really good for Gonzaga in the future. And Malachi Smith's averaging 8.4 points per game and 3.4 rebounds per game. He's been a solid guard for Gonzaga this year. He hasn't really broken out, but he is still playing well for the Bulldogs. And off the bench, Gonzaga also has Nolan Hickman and Hunter Salas to provide really good guard minutes for Gonzaga. And Gonzaga this season is averaging a ridiculous 87.8 points per game, and on defense they're giving up 74.1 points per game. I know that Gonzaga's offensive numbers are a bit skewed because they're in the West Coast Conference, but still Gonzaga's a great offensive team, especially with Drew Timme and Julian Strawther leading the way. Even with down guard play this year, Gonzaga's still a great offensive team, but their defensive numbers are an issue, and that has been what's led to Gonzaga struggling a bit this season, because their defensive numbers are nowhere near as good as they've been in the past. And overall, if they want to have a deep run in March Madness and get this win over the St. Mary's Gales, they're going to have to defend at a really high level. So who do I think is going to win this game that's going to decide who wins the West Coast Conference regular season title? St. Mary's overall is a great team because they are coached so well by Randy Bennett. He gets his players to buy in to a defensive system that they all know and execute at a high level, which is why they're only giving up 58.9 points per game on defense. And if Gonzaga is going to want to score 87 points, they're going to have to find a way to break the code of St. Mary's, because Gonzaga played at St. Mary's earlier this year and they really struggled and they could not get anything going on offense because the Gales, their defensive identity got to the Bulldogs in that second half, and Gonzaga fell short, falling on the road at St. Mary's. St. Mary's will be able to beat Gonzaga again if they can impose their defensive will on the Bulldogs. And overall, St. Mary's offense is underrated, and Aiden Mahaney's a big reason why, because he is such a great freshman. He has ice in his veins. He's not afraid of the moment, and he has played well all year and has not looked rattled. And Logan Johnson, his emergence lately, playing like the player that he is capable of, has made St. Mary's such a dangerous team. But this is at the Kennel. This is no longer in California. St. Mary's is going to have to go up to Spokane, Washington, and deal with one of the toughest environments in college basketball. College game day is going to be there, and the Bulldogs fans are going to be amped, and that's going to be extremely difficult for St. Mary's, even though they're so well head coached overall. But Mark Few is a great coach as well, and Gonzaga has more talent, but talent doesn't always matter, especially if the style of play of St. Mary's can win out. But Gonzaga is an up and down team, and when you have the home crowd on your side, it gives you extra juice, and you should be able to use that extra juice to be able to score more points and get out in transition and play a lot harder. And I think that Gonzaga is going to be able to do that. I think St. Mary's will do the best they can to make this a lower scoring game, but I do think Gonzaga's offensive identity, especially because they're at the Kennel, one of the top places to play in college basketball, is going to win out at the end of the day. And I think that Gonzaga's defense, even though they do struggle, will be able to slow down St. Mary's offense just enough to win this game. I'm going to go with the Gonzaga Bulldogs to beat the St. Mary's Gales 76-71 in this West Coast Conference rivalry game. I think that St. Mary's can win this game. They're really going to want to win the West Coast Conference regular season title outright, and why wouldn't they? Because Gonzaga's dominated the conference for so long, and I think that St. Mary's is going to play really hard in this game. They're going to want to knock the Bulldogs off the pedestal that they have in the WCC, and Randy Bennett, he will have his team prepared. He will have his team mentally ready for the crowd noise, getting them to play high-level basketball and try to impose their defensive will on the Bulldogs and get their offense going with Logan Johnson and Aiden Mahaney to try to be able to outscore Gonzaga, but it's really hard to outscore Gonzaga overall, and if St. Mary's can't get their defense to play at a high level at the Kennel, where it's going to be so loud, and Gonzaga's fans are going to really influence this game, I think Gonzaga is going to be able to score a lot of points in this game and get things going on the offensive end. Drew Timme's going to be able to dominate, and I don't think St. Mary's is going to be able to slow him down on Gonzaga's home court. And I think that Gonzaga overall, their other players are going to get things going, like Rasir Bolton, and Julian Strawther's going to have a good game as well. I think Gonzaga is going to find a way to win this game, and they're going to play a little bit better than St. Mary's on both sides of the ball. I'm going to go with the Gonzaga Bulldogs to beat the St. Mary's Gales 76-71 in this WCC rivalry game, for Gonzaga to be able to tie the Gales for the West Coast Conference regular season title. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Comment down below whether you think St. Mary's or Gonzaga is going to win this WCC rivalry game and why, and I will see you next time.